just before lunch, we had a conversation with Minister Lucia Vecchi, and the conversations went along the lines of identifying the important things to him and to this community, and particularly to ASTA, and the issues of food and nutrition security, food safety, and the global market, the global development agenda, the Expo 2015 and the vision around it, and the place of science in safety and nutrition and taste in the marketplace, and the need for global partnership to engage in meeting this agenda. And I just wanted to share with you, we may be going in a roundabout way to make a point, but the point that you would hear from me would be upholding the role of science, technology, and innovation and the marketplace in the global development agenda, in the global agricultural agenda, and particularly the need for partnership, not only the traditional sense of public-private partnership that we really need very much. As I keep talking about this topic, I said that the 20th century had brought about remarkable agricultural revolutions throughout the world. Many would like, and some may not like, but the fact is that millions and billions of people have been fed by advances that we have made in the 20th century. But the more important thing, I think, the clue to that magic that was done in Western Europe and North America is really the public-private partnership model that have been employed. My sense is the 20th century model had worked very well in developing European, North American economies and so on. But I really think as a world today, we're going to need a special 21st century public-private partnership model. And the nature of it is not very clearly understood, but each community and each society, each nation will have to be thinking through those issues for themselves. And the other thing that is going to be extremely important, and I heard it in my conversation with Minister Vecchi, and the Vice Minister also alluded to that, communities and societies that build a structure and architecture for their science and for their partnership to be competitive and to be engaging in a productive way where science, technology, and partnership and policy would work well together, work orchestrated, those communities with the finest architecture of that kind of nature is likely to succeed. Each will have to think for themselves what is the best in their local scenario, because this is a globally competitive market opportunities that we all face. So with that as an introduction, I would like to take you through some of the issues that I actually prepared to talk about, and instead of this off-the-cuff comments that I provided you at this time. Let me start my comments by this statement that I had made multiple times, and that is that the struggle to reduce hunger, poverty, and attain sustainable global food security is humanity's greatest challenge of the 21st century. I think we talked again before lunch in our conversation. We are human beings. There are other important things to us. There is nothing more fundamental that makes us human than really the value of food and food in our daily lives. There are a lot of things that we can get by without having every day, but we can't get by without having food on a regular basis for our health and nutrition and development. Because it is so basic that it is taken for granted so much time in the past, but really when you really think about it, nothing is more important than that. The poor and hungry in developing countries recognize that, but the affluent nation of Western Europe and North America totally forgot the importance of agriculture and food and food and nutrition security. So when you really stop and think about it, nothing is more important to humanity to be able to sustainably feed 9 billion people in perpetuity is going to be a very, very challenging and difficult task. And so the conversations that I will have with you today would be sharing with you from my perspective the difficulties as I see them myself. Here is the headlines that you already know. We've got about 7 billion people that we reached in 2011. And by 2050, it's projected to be around 2000 and about 9.5 billion. That is suggesting an exactly calculated 38% increase, approximately 40% increase in in population growth. But as you know also in this community and others, there is going to be an additional demand in food production, not only commensurate with the number of people that are going to be growing, but the diet change in emerging economies that people in China and Brazil and places like that, and hopefully in Africa as well, that want to live like the Italians, want to live like the Americans, want to eat like you do, like North Americans do. When that happens, it's going to put an additional demand on feed production. So the food we produce is going to be shared by the animals we raise, and so it's going to be channeled to producing the protein diet that the new population is going to be needing. So approximately, it's said, anywhere from 70% to doubling the amount of food production is needed in the next 30 years or 15 years or so. And by 2050, if you go that far, it would be about 30 years or so. And so doubling the food production at that time is not going to be easy. There's going to be an argument that we don't need that much. They're going to be talking about it's not 70%, it's not 100%, but whatever it is, we're going to need to produce a lot more than we produce today. And the number of poor has decreased a little bit. It's not 1 billion, and the statistics tells us now it's nearly 1 billion, about 860 million or so. But there is a number of poor people that is growing, and also the number of people that are not recognized as the poorest of the poor, but still live with under $2 a day, are still very poor, and that's 40% of the global population today. And the diet needs of those have not been met satisfactorily for nutritional needs, nutrition and food security basis. So I say humanity will face formidable challenges. So what I'm going to do from here on is walking through these challenges that we face to make sure that we feed humanity sustainably in the years to come. I have two categories of challenges. The first category I listed is existing challenges that are getting to be more and more important anymore. And that is population growth, the challenge of increasing food production, and also our recognition of the fragility of our ecosystem and the concerns that we have for them, and the land constraints that we don't have the luxury of bringing more land to production as we had done in the past, and pre- and post-harvest losses, food loss, food waste, food safety issues that we need to worry about, lumped together in that category. These have become increasingly important agenda for all of us in agriculture. So I'm going to talk a little bit about each one of them to share my view with you. The exponential population growth is widely acknowledged. And just to share with you a statistic that I said already, about 38% in the world additional population being contributed to, but it's not a uniform introduction. Europe and North America would only grow by about 7%, but the rest of the world, the low-income countries, are going to be growing by 45%. But even among that, look at the variability among those, that Africa is going to double its population, more than double its population. Africa is going to go from about 800 million people to 2 billion people by 2030. And so the additional mouths to feed, the additional opportunities for engagement with that continent is going to increase. And so if Africa is going to be surviving in the global economy, it would have to change its economy, grow its agricultural economy. The reason why that is important is there are not a lot of opportunities today in Africa other than developing the agriculture economy, because depending on where you are in Africa, anywhere between 60 and 80% of the population rely on agriculture and live in the rural communities. And so those have to be engaged in a meaningful way, whether it is organic farming or large-scale farming that they want to get engaged in. They will need to get engaged. They need to change their game to be pertinent. And so the distribution and the range of variation in this growth that I'm talking about in population is going to be very variable. Nevertheless, we need to stop thinking about local communities as such and worry about the global economy, because we live in this globally competitive world. We also have limited resources in this planet, and those resources need to be taken care of, utilized very judiciously, so that we have a sustainable environment for years and decades to come. And people may differ on whether or how much of this they believe based on their economic interest, but if they really take that hat off, I don't think this is an argument that is really very different among different camps, because we have one planet. If we don't use these God-given resources today, we don't have the luxury, the ability to pass it on for the next generation if we're careless. And the consumption growth that I talked about is in 2030 or so, 64% of the population of China is going to be high income. Only 36% would be below $2 a day. And today, there are a lot more. And in India, that growth is not going to be there unless they change the game. If they do, that's another 1.5 billion people that we have to worry, because they also change their game, and they're going to need high protein diets, even though the culture is slightly different from the culture in China. There would be more grains, more beans, and so on to be produced. And every one of these countries would have a higher proportion of their population in a higher income community level, so that they're going to need an additional diet change and creating some increase in food production.